Hello beautiful people, and welcome to your practical application of astrology. This one was once again not planned, so I'm just going to speak about whatever comes to me. It is a day after full moon in Scorpio, Tuesday. We just experienced a very powerful and very intense full moon in Scorpio yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. Moon by this point is in the sign of Sagittarius, conjunct my MC in my 10th house, currently opposing my Chiron. So let's just see what we'll want to come through. And also just to remind everyone why this full moon in Scorpio was so powerful, because Uranus was involved as the current ruler of Pluto, as the ruler of Scorpio, and also, well, we can say everybody was involved, including Mars, the traditional ruler of Scorpio, being a sign of Leo. But yeah, predominantly Uranus conjunct Sun, opposing the Moon, also Saturn North Node conjunction, making a trine to the Moon. So it was extremely transformational and healing moon, or at least offering the opportunity for transformation and healing. But of course, we have a free will's choice, so it's up to us. Mercury in opposition with Lilith, Mercury being on the early degrees of Taurus. Actually, I think it was on 3 degrees, which of course is the Gemini degree, the degree of choice, squaring the Pluto-Mars opposition, so activating this grand fixed cross. So we are all kind of potentially, I'm not saying everybody's feeling this way, I know I am kind of feeling stuck. I'm just looking, there is a swan on a river, so I'm just looking at that. So yeah, we might be feeling a little bit stuck, because yeah, with the Mars-Pluto opposition still active, we know who we were, but we feel that we are becoming someone else, but we don't know what it is. So it's kind of the balancing of who we were with who we becoming in the present moment, bridging the gap, right? But you know, because we don't know where we're going. Chiron being the sign of Aries, Chiron as the key between Saturn and Uranus, and also Neptune as the ruler of Saturn being in Aries, ruled by Mars in the sign of Leo. You know, it's about whatever you create. And Saturn shortly to be moving into the Aries, sign of Aries, you know, first time in the past 28, 29 years. So we have a lot on our plate that we are digesting, especially with these after effects of this full moon in Scorpio. And as this is a practical application of astrology, I'm going to share some things as they have been showing up in my life, in my experience over here in Slovakia, spending time with my family. I have still 2 more days to go before I move onwards onto Bansko, Bulgaria. And yeah, this full moon in Scorpio technically activated my nodes, my lunar nodes. My south node is in Scorpio, so there's been a lot of activation going on for me, as I'm sure they are going on for everyone else. As Pluto is back retrograde, well, Pluto is retrograde, I am going to experience my second Pluto square shortly. So yeah, a lot of things, and being back in Slovakia, south node in Scorpio, you know, all the stuff is coming up. And actually I just had the realization. It's interesting because I didn't put the 2 and 2 together until I kind of was thinking about it, doing my yoga, which is usually when realizations come to me. The last lunation I experienced here right before leaving Slovakia, going to Mexico, was a new moon in Scorpio, and this is the first lunation I've experienced here, because I still was in Mexico for the new moon in Taurus, which took place day after my 40th birthday on well, it took place on April 27th. So yeah, so it's interesting that now you know, here we go again, Slovakia, with all the old patterns, all the old dynamics. And actually a few days ago I had a realization which kind of put me at peace, but then obviously, you know, we get stuck in our old patterns of thinking. But for the moment when I had that realization, it made me feel at peace, and I wanted to share it, but then other things happened that day, so I thought, okay, let me start with that and share that now, which was about what is your truth, you know, what is your truth? Also, we know this Mercury is in opposition with Lilith, and Mercury is the ruler of Jupiter. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of the North Node. So what is the truth? There are very few things that are the universal truth, which are valid for everyone, you know, at any time, any place, no matter where you're from, no matter your age, your background, nothing. You know, these are laws, universal laws that are applicable to everyone. Everything else is just a subjective perception of reality. And especially now with Jupiter being in Gemini, we can decide, we can choose for ourselves. Well, what is your truth? You know, what do you want it to be your truth? So me being back in Slovakia and experiencing a lot of the same old, because as I mentioned many times before, my parents are my greatest teachers, made me who I am, or help me to become who I am. Obviously I'm a self-made person, but help me to become who I am by offering the ultimate contrast and all the rest of it. So now being back in Slovakia and re-experiencing a lot of the same dynamics, and there is one thing I can always rely on, which is my parents, not changing and playing the same role they've always played. So in many cases, they always show me the things that I'm afraid of the most. For example, if I'm worried about something, thinking about something, oh, my parents are very likely to go and poke exactly there, are going to throw it in my face, mirror it back to me, reflect it back to me, my greatest fears. So obviously now being full moon in Scorpio, which is, you know, Scorpio is very intense, goes very deep, and the whole theme of this full moon in Scorpio was about us becoming aware what it is still that makes us feel disempowered, that is kind of, you know, preventing us, or we might feel being stuck and not allowed to move into this direction that we want to move into, this, you know, this Taurus, this whatever it is that, you know, we want to become the foundation of the next chapter of our life, right? So yeah, so especially to do with the belief systems, you know, whatever is their perception of reality, very different from mine, and you know, they believe whatever they believe, and they have a 100% right to believe whatever they want to believe, because it's just a perception. It's not universal truth. It doesn't have to be my truth, but obviously them being my parents, and this is something which, you know, like I have an awareness of and higher understanding of, but it is so not easy to it's still not easy to embody it, which is this, like, well, I don't really care, you know, I don't really care if they like me or if they agree with me or if they, you know, validate my experience and stuff, because of course they don't, and of course they might never do, because that's their role they came here to play. So there is that realization that, well, there is still aspect of me that still wants that is still hoping for that, but at the same time having the understanding that, well, you know, they are who they are, and they that way for a reason, and they are unlikely to change, and it's not necessary to judge it and want to change it, you know, because just like a good friend of mine advised to me with her wisdom and said, you didn't come here to change anyone or anything, you just came here to master yourself. So that's really, you know, what we're playing with over here. You know, we didn't come here to change anybody else's perspective or perception of reality. You know, we can offer by example, by becoming, you know, who we came here to be, by becoming the best version of ourselves, by stepping into our authentic expression and just living our life. And then the other people, you know, whether they're family, friends, whoever, they either become inspired and, you know, like will want to match that frequency, which will offer opportunity for growth for them, or not. You know, it's not about like, okay, well, just because I've decided and chosen to perceive reality certain way and live certain way and continuously want to grow and evolve and work on myself and stuff, well, you know, my parents are not obligated to do the same thing. So anyway, so they were just projecting some of their belief systems and storytelling and their, you know, like worst case scenarios and what they feel is the outcome of any situation and stuff, and I was getting very triggered by it. But at the same time, I was really observing it. I really caught myself observing it, and while my mother was talking and, you know, sharing her opinions, sharing her perceptions, sharing her truth, right, I also was like having an inner dialogue with myself about like, well, but she is, you know, she is allowed to have her opinion, she's allowed to have her truth, you know, but why am I getting triggered? You know, if I'm getting triggered, that means that I'm, you know, either believing what she's saying, or I'm allowing myself to adopt that perception, which obviously is not in alignment with, you know, my higher self, my desires, and that's why it doesn't feel good, right? But I'm trying to resist it, I'm trying to fight it, and I'm trying to convince someone to believe something different and stuff, which is, again, that is not what I came here to do. I didn't come here to convince anybody about anything. I just came here to live my life, right? So I'm really like coming like towards this like a dead end, right? Towards this like how you call it, the blind road, you know, like the road that doesn't go anywhere, right? Dead end, where I'm learning to realize that, well, you're not gonna go any further this way, right? You're not gonna go any further this way. And also a dream that I had a few nights ago about transcending, where my guides were advising me, you know, that I need to learn to transcend any situation that I'm experiencing, because otherwise I'm giving too much power of it. You know, if I'm allowing the situation, person, circumstance to trigger me, you know, I'm giving it all the power, right? And it was actually interesting because I had the dream before the situation with my parents took place, and it was technically talking about the same thing, like pre-warning me about the situation that that took place later as a test, as a lesson, to be integrated. So yeah, so the bottom line of all of that, especially because, as I mentioned, my south node is in Scorpio. It's actually in the 9th house, and Jupiter is in my first house in Aquarius, squaring the node's resolution south node in Scorpio. So this is what keeps tripping me up. This is what me personally, I need to learn to break free from, which is these stories, right? The stories and who believes what, and me always having a choice. Do I want to adopt this story or not? Well, if that story doesn't resonate with me, I don't have to listen to it. Just like I keep mentioning many times, there are a million channels on the television. You don't have to watch news, right? If it doesn't make you feel good, you don't have to watch it. You can watch whatever you want. There are a million channels out there to choose from, right? So it's the same thing, just because these are my parents, I don't have to believe what they say. I don't have to even listen to it, right? Obviously, they mean well from the place where they're coming from. And this is, again, what, me, my good friends agreed on, and a lot of other people. They can't they can't advise you about going where they've never been, right? They cannot give you the direction for going where they've never been, right? Because I am desiring to go and live life in a way my parents never experienced, and they've never been there, so they can't really advise me how to get there, because this is outside of their bandwidth, outside of their scope of understanding. So not good or bad, this is not about belittling or anything, it's just a different experience. So obviously they are not going to be able to support me in going in the direction they never walked and into destination they never chose for themselves, or at least not until this point. There is always possibility for change. So this was a big realization for me, which obviously is very obvious for many people, but like having the opportunity to actually embody it, the awareness that, well, why am I getting triggered repeatedly over and over and over again because of my parents sharing their opinion or sharing their perspective or projecting their experiences or their limitations onto me. I don't have to adopt it. I don't have to become it. I don't have to embody it. I can choose just to let it wash over me. I can choose to transcend it, right? And this is the same thing with the world when we take the micro into macro, and when we listen into all these things, all these predictions that don't feel very good, right? You don't have to listen to it, you don't have to adopt it, you don't have to believe it. It's entirely up to you, because this literally is the world we are stepping into, right? When we are, the timelines are shifting, changing, splitting, whatever you want to call it. Well, people will decide for themselves whatever timelines they're going to be experiencing based on their truth, based on their perception of reality, based on the story they are choosing, especially with Jupiter still being in the sign of Gemini, right? So we are all choosing our future, our future timelines, our upcoming timelines. So this, as much as it's been, once again, I've been here now, well, almost 12 days, right? I'm leaving in 2 days. I've been here almost 12 days. And once again, as I mentioned in my previous practical application of astrology, 48 hours into arriving, I fell sick, and I'm still struggling with cold, and I know that as soon as I get out of here I'll be fine, and also like all the other things, 10 days in I started having headache, but it's coming and going. So anyway, the physical body obviously is showing, like part of it is my resistance to what is, but part of it is also, it is not in alignment. So it's my realization, like, okay, well, I don't have to stay here. I don't have to be here, feeling victimized by the circumstances, but the circumstances were being created by my choice, my choice of storing all my stuff and my parents. Every time I'm changing continent, having to have to come here to change clothes, to change suitcases and stuff, but that's all by my choice, right? Like, and also being treated like a child when I'm staying with them, even though I'm 40 years old. Well, but if you're staying with your parents in your former child's room and all your things are there and your parents are cooking for you and your mom is doing your washing and stuff, then yeah, of course they're gonna treat you like a child, right? So this is what I mean, this is how what I'm saying, it's tying up to all of this energy. This is just how it's showing up for me in my life, but how it's the things that's been illuminated for me, because it's my 9th house, right? South node. It's been my 9th and a 3rd house. This is where the full moon in Scorpio landed for me. becoming aware of the choices I have made and where do I feel disempowered by them. But it's like the devil card, you know, we are not trapped for life, you know, it's just an illusion, you know, you can take the chains off, you know, like the two naked people on the devil card, and then it becomes another choice, you know, you can make another choice, like, you know, the devil card 15, and then we have the 6, which is the lovers, you know, the choice, the ultimate choice, the Gemini. And like I said, we had very active Mercury for this lunation in opposition with Lilith. Lilith in Scorpio, right? And she's bringing up all this shadow, you know, all these things that like once again, you know, we have to become conscious of the unconscious in order to change anything, you know. Until we become conscious of the unconscious, then the unconscious mind is just running our life without us having to do much, right? Most of the day, most of the time, you know, most of our life, we are being run by the unconscious program, which has been, you know, put into our system when we were little children, right? The program we adopted from our environment. So we have to become conscious of the unconscious in order for us to choose different program for the change to take place. And obviously it's not going to happen overnight because, you know, South Node in Virgo, you know, we are processing and digesting and eliminating, you know, and discerning over things that's been going on for a very long time. So obviously for me personally, whatever my soul chose to put on a plate to grow through, evolve through, metamorphose, and this, you know, like transform, transcend, and transmute, you know, through my incarnation, through my life, being Pluto in Scorpio in 9th house, you know, is my own teaching that, you know, then perhaps it will help someone else, I don't know. But, you know, like also being honest with myself and having the compassion for myself, you know, to admit that I don't know, you know, I don't know. And I, you know, notice myself struggling, you know, like I said, like I keep saying, like I keep sharing every time I come here, you know, like feeling that I failed, or feeling like, what did I learn? You know, I didn't get very far, you know, I'm still struggling with the same thing. But it's never the same, right? Because we've changed, you know, I've changed in the past 6 months, I've changed tremendously, and I have faster realizations of what's going on. Okay, well, things are still happening, things are still triggering me, but I have a much faster realization of what is actually going on and why. So, you know, so that's, for me, it's something that I celebrate, right? Because like I said, you know, having the realization while my parents were having a go at me, it gave me a sense of peace. That, okay, well, this is just their opinion, you know, it doesn't have to be my truth. But obviously being a strong manifester, I'm a manifesting generator in human design, you know, it's up to me. How much energy do I want to put into this to manifest it? Again, going back to micro, how much energy do you want to put into all of these stories and predictions that trying to sell you, you know, and marketize, you know, on social media, on news, whatever? How much energy do you want to put into to help that to manifest, right? Because is that truth? Is that not truth? Well, who knows? Unless you embody the experience, you know, unless you dare having that experience, who knows what is exactly the truth, right? So that's what I mean, you know, this Sagittarius, and, you know, interesting that obviously Moon is in Sagittarius. It is a very mutable energy. You know, there are a lot of things that can be sold to you that this is the truth, just like my parents trying to project their stories onto me, and what they see is the outcome of anything in my life. And me going like, okay, well, thank you for sharing, you know, it's an interesting perspective. I don't particularly believe it, or I don't wish to adopt it. And that's what I mean. That was a big shift that day for me. But then obviously being Cancer Moon, and yesterday Scorpio affecting my South Node, it was bringing even more stuff to the surface, right? Even more fears, more insecurities, especially to do with resources, or being resourceful, or being worthy and stuff. Because, right, North Node in Taurus over here, right? Which is what, you know, I mean, Mercury is not conjuncting it here, but Mercury is conjuncting my Sun. And also the Sun is conjuncting my North Node. I mean, it's you know, already disseminating conjunction, like it's already moving away from it. But then Sun will be coming for my Mars. So there are a lot of activations, and I'm sure there are a lot of activations for everyone. It doesn't matter, you know, like what star signs are you. You know, everybody's got Taurus, Scorpio somewhere, right? And all these planets that are moving, you know, in their perfect dance in the sky, creating the energy that is necessary for this change to happen, the change we all agree to, otherwise we wouldn't be alive right here, right now. You know, they all landing somewhere in your chart, they all activating something in your chart to support you, you know, to help you. Like, I know that this, for me, you know, it's something that is definitely positive, right? It is definitely helpful because it's just showing me my blind spots, you know. It's showing me like, okay, well, you know, this is still something you really need to look at and work with, because I mean, as I mentioned in previous videos, like maybe last year, you know, if we can't even deal with our family, you know, then how are we gonna deal with the world, right? Like, these are the first people, obviously these are the strongest and most karmic contracts usually, but yeah, if I can't even find the compassion for my parents, or, you know, the love or understanding or forgiveness, then how the hell am I going to go, you know, like forgive anybody else that I'm not emotionally invested in, I don't care about, you know? Like, you would say like, well, it's much easier to forgive someone else, right? But, you know, it's not the same level of learning, is it? So anyway, so there's been all these things, and like I said yesterday, for me personally, it was a very, very heavy day. Obviously things feel much lighter today, especially like I said, as the moon moved into Sagittarius and is going to trine my Venus, trine my Mercury, trine my Uranus throughout this transit. So, you know, coming to on the other side of it, and this is always how life is, right? Everything is in cycles, right? Everything is cyclical. We have been flowing through it, and we always have a choice. We always can make a new choice, right? Always can make a new choice. Like with this Mercury Lilith opposition, like I said, activating the grand fixed cross, because both are squaring the Mars Pluto opposition, which is still active. Pluto is retrograde now, so this is what's accelerating our opposition. You know, imagine Mercury, you know, in Taurus, like, this is who I am, you know, this is my belief system, this is what I believe, this is what I'm thinking, this is the program. And opposite is Lilith, right? The dark side of you, you know, the shadow, the moon, the unconscious mind, you know. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at this. Let's look at this, you know, and perhaps we will have a change of mind, perhaps we will have a change of heart, and perhaps we'll have to make some adjustments in order, you know, to go to the next level, right? Because there are the squares from each side, you know. Mars in Leo, you being reborn, right? You have to recreate yourself, go back to your authentic expression, go back to the origins, you know, childhood. And you know, Pluto in Aquarius, we're going beyond. And going back to Uranus, which is where we started, Uranus conjunct Sun, which the exact conjunction is actually happening on, I believe it's on the 17th, right? So yeah, we have a lot going on. And obviously also Sun, you know, Sun in the sky, it is going to be trining, right? Trining the South Node and sextiling the North Node. I believe that is on Thursday, right? So I'm recording this on Tuesday, yeah. So, but I mean, these things are already active, right? Like I said, the North Node was trining the Scorpio Moon, right? Conjunct Saturn, right? Saturn is moving into Aries on the 24th, you know, like not long from now, right? Like next week, no? So, I mean, we have so much going on for us as, you know, individuals and collectives, and we've been prepped, right? So all of these energies, all of these lunations, all of these transits are just helping us. They're helping us to transform into this new, updated version of ourselves that will be more in alignment with where we're going. Because at the moment, we are carrying a lot of shit from past, from this life, past life, ancestors, past incarnation, collective energy, right? All of us are carrying stuff that doesn't belong to us, so hence that North Node in Pisces, conjunct Saturn in Pisces, still currently 29 degrees, analytic degrees of Pisces, the totality. We understand the totality, the what, why, where, and now we have an opportunity to let it go. If it's no longer in resonance, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't feel right, because with the Neptune in Aries now, the meaning has changed. The meaning has changed. The desire of source has changed. The reason why we stay in here is changing, right? Like some people want, there are souls that are contracted to exit throughout the Pluto transit through Aquarius within the next 20 years. But there are souls that will still be here for Pluto in Pisces. These new souls, the babies, they'll be here even for Pluto in Aries. God knows, maybe even for Pluto in Taurus, whatever. So, if you came here to stay, then you are going through process of metamorphosis right now, as I am, as many of us are, because the old is not compatible, right? The old is not compatible. It's like, when you have an old version of iPhone, you cannot really use it because the apps, in many cases, are either not compatible or take so much space, on the hard drive, on the RAM of the iPhone. You cannot use them, right? So we need to expand, right? It's like continuous evolution and expansion of consciousness, and that's what's going on here. And you know, based on the channelers I've been listening to, there are some very potent energies that are streaming through this month, you know, starting from yesterday and going forward. And this is all connected to Saturn as the chronos, as the manifested form of reality, moving into Aries, right? There is a whole new beginning, whole new world we're creating. Also Saturn represents the world card in tarot, right? Things have ended. They have ended. We can still see them, you know, because we can see the aftermath, the after effect, you know, the physical manifestation, the last the last part of the manifesting process, excuse me. We can still see it, but you know, it doesn't mean that this is what's going to be there forever. So this is what I feel, you know, for myself, you know, where I want to go, and the experience I've had with Mexico, especially the past 3+ months with my soulmate. The old version of me is not compatible with that future that I've seen the memory of, that I've seen the premonition and experienced the premonition of. It's a very different life, right? So in that life, I cannot get completely discombobulated and taken out of order by my parents projecting their opinions and their stories and their beliefs and their predictions. They have nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the version of me that I'm becoming, because they are projecting this onto a version of myself that I was, based on the experiences I had. So what it is for you, you know, what it is in your life, also with Venus, you know, Venus being in Aries, like I keep saying, you know, the needs, values, relational dynamic have changed. You know, Venus had the first conjunction with Neptune, the third, you know, with Neptune, but first with Neptune, just like Mercury, in Aries, the first one for the next 12 years. Just like Venus is now conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius, you know, for the next 18 or 20 years, whatever. You know, this is a huge... these are huge transits that we are learning and learning to embody gradually, right? But we already know, because we already know that this doesn't feel right. So the Scorpio full moon illuminated to us the places, the big spots, right? The big spots. But also, you know, if you have done the work already, it illuminated to you how much power you really have over your life, you know? If you don't feel in charge of your life, if you feel somebody else is in charge and you just feel victimized and disempowered by it, like me here at my parents' place, you know, then yeah, then that's what it illuminated to you, and it's okay, well, there's more work required, you know, no offense, no judgment, right? No judgment, this is just the midpoint, don't worry about it. You can still steer the boat in a different direction. This is just the full moon. It is, you know, it's the midpoint, right? We're gonna have a new moon in November. By then, you know, a lot of things can change, and it probably will, right? That's what I mean. But if you already done the work, the shadow work, then yeah, it's gonna show you like what a powerful manifester you are, how much you've done, how far you've gone, how many things you swinged around, and look at you now, look at your life, you know, and that gives you the confidence, right? And the, you know, Taurus, the sense of self-worth, the sense of competency, you know, the Virgo, South Node in Virgo, the trine to South Node in Virgo from Sun, but also, you know, the sense of self-reliance, self-sufficiency, you know, that yes, I can rely on myself, because everything I've achieved in my life, I have done it, you know, I've gone through 100% of my life and I survived all of it, right? So obviously, you know, I can do it, right? If I survived all of this, I can do anything, right? So that's what I mean. So however this have shown up for you, you know, this is not the time to start screwing ourselves over, the mistakes that we repeating, but to go like, okay, but you know, like I'm like, you know, like I said, sharing my experience. Yes, you know, I'm still getting triggered. Yes, it's still the same story repeating itself, but I have a choice. Every time this is happening, I have a choice, you know. Okay, well, nice story, whatever. You know, it's not who I am anymore. And again, you know, like some people are not meant to go where you are going. You know, some people are not going to change just because you're changing. So that's why the sense of disconnection is going to become more present, right? Like with me, with my parents, you know, and I know, like I said, like I shared last year, you know, they are suffering through it too, you know, like they are wounded because of it too. Well, I mean, they are wounded, obviously, because otherwise they, you know, they wouldn't be who they are, but they lost me too, just like I lost them, because the gap is getting wider. So what people in your life cannot go where you're going. And it is hard, you know, it is heartbreaking. And, you know, by them trying to project their stories from, you know, the version of myself or who I was into me now, they're trying to cling on to who I was so they can keep me in their life, because the person I'm becoming, or I have an intention to become, they will not, they potentially will not be able to reach me in the same way, right? And that's what, you know, consciously or subconsciously, I believe they feel. And that's frightening for them, you know, because they're losing me just like I'm losing them. So anyway, obviously the story is to be continued, but I just wanted to share some of my observation with regards to my current experiences. The sun is shining, so things do feel better. And like I said, I will be moving onwards into Bulgaria in 2 days' time, which I will have 2 weeks to be just on my own, in my energy, to properly go through all of this, digest it, integrate it. I'm sure many more realizations will come through. But the bottom line is, what did this full moon in Scorpio illuminate it for you? And this is to help you onwards on your journey to becoming the conscious creator of whatever reality you decide you want to create. So don't allow anyone, not even your parents in my case, to create that reality for you. You don't have to consent to other people's stories, you know, and it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter how true it seems, how likable, how realistic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what evidence they will offer you, just like my parents in my case. Well, this is like a deja vu, this is what happened last time, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter, because what was, right? It's in the past. That's it. You know, you're not who you were back then. I am not who I was back then, but it's my choice whether I want to be that person again or not, whether I want these situations to become reality again or not. And this is why so many of us keep feeling stuck over and over and over again, because we believe these old stories and then we keep recreating them. It's not like we don't create nothing, you know, we create, but we just recreating the same shit because we believe the same stories. So once again, what did this full moon show you, you know, about yourself and your journey? Where do you feel stuck or disempowered, and why? And what is the story behind it, and why? And what is the emotional attachments, and what do we need to heal? So in my case, again, just like what I started with, there is an aspect of me, an inner child aspect, that would like, you know, my parents to be different. to validate me and love me for who I am, and not see me as a complete alien and a complete failure and somebody completely not worthy, because what they value is not me, you know. Their values are very different from mine, you know, like what they value in someone is not what I represent. So there is an aspect of me that would like that, but you know, I have to come to peace with the fact that this is never gonna happen. Very unlikely, probably, but I really don't care, you know, and no, one way or another, maybe then it will come and it won't matter anymore. But you know, now while it still has a charge to make me feel a certain way and take me out of my balance, you know, out of my neutrals, like neutral point, they're not gonna give me what I need, right? Because I need to learn to give it to myself. And that's the, you know, that's the Taurus, you know, like how are you, like Taurus, you know, Cancer, yeah, you know, the nurture, self-nurture, but Taurus, like what you feed in your soul with, you know, what is the nutrition? Because Cancer is the emotional, you know, the emotional nurturing, right? But yeah, obviously we are going to have a new moon in Cancer next month in June, so you know, we're gonna get there soon enough anyway. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave it at that. Obviously I'm outdoors, so I'm not gonna be pulling any cards. I just wanted to share some thoughts and contemplations, and you know, again, this is an ongoing journey. There is no like, okay, yeah, I got it all figured out, God knows what's gonna happen now. But you know, just some of my experiencing of this full moon in Scorpio. I hope that you're feeling better today, if you have felt or did feel very charged yesterday, which is what I experienced. But anyway, I'm sure whatever you experience, it is helping you and supporting you on your onwards journey. So yeah, you know, it's just a matter of understanding what it is, why, and what is it trying to teach me, what I'm supposed to do with it. So again, guys, I wish you all a wonderful rest of the week, integration of this full moon in Scorpio, and I'll speak to you again from Bulgaria. Much love, everyone, and bye for now.